Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're exploring this really powerful idea, walking the path less traveled. It comes from a pretty compelling speech we looked at.
Right. And it's presented not just as, a nice phrase, but as a real choice we face pretty much daily.
Exactly. Do you stick to the well-worn path, the one paved with, let's say, conventional wisdom, what society expects?
Or do you take the other one? The one that's maybe overgrown, harder to see, definitely not the popular route.
Yes. So, our mission today for this deep dive is to figure out what that less traveled path really means, what it asks of you, and frankly, why bothering with it is, well, so important. So the source material, it describes this path, this less traveled one. What kind of person does it take to walk it? What qualities are, essential?
Yeah, it's interesting how it lays that out. It talks about courage, obviously,
Right.
but also this mix of conviction, like really believing in your own direction, and curiosity, wanting to see what's beyond the usual.
Curiosity, okay.
And it frames challenging the status quo, not just as, fighting against something external. It suggests it starts inside, questioning your own assumptions. That's where the real innovation begins, according to this view.
Ah. Okay, so it's an internal shift first.
Exactly. And uncertainty. It's not something to just put up with. It's like framed as the adventure itself, where the real learning happens, outside the comfort zone.
That sounds great in theory, but it can feel a bit abstract. How does the speech make this more concrete? Does it give examples?
It does, yeah. It brings in history. Think about pioneers crossing oceans when everyone else stayed home,
Right. Big risks.
or artists who just ignored the rules of their time, scientists questioning things everyone accepted as true, activists fighting for change.
Okay, so real people, real struggles.
And the point it makes is that these people weren't just guessing, they were listening to something else, like an inner compass, it calls it, something guiding them differently than the crowd. And often, they faced a lot of resistance before anyone saw the value.
Which brings us to the downsides, I suppose. Because choosing this path, it's not easy, is it? The speech must touch on the difficulties.
Oh, absolutely. It's very clear about that. It mentions the doubts, the criticism you might face, feeling isolated sometimes or just misunderstood.
It's tough.
It is.
Yeah.
But the source reframes it. These aren't just roadblocks. They're more like crucibles, moments that forge your character, build resilience. That's where it argues true originality comes from. There's that line, each stumble becomes a lesson, each setback a stepping stone.
I like that. So the difficulty is actually part of the value.
That's the idea. The struggle itself enriches the journey.
Now, one thing the speech clarifies, which I think is important, is that this doesn't mean you have to reject everything conventional, right? It's not about just being contrary for the sake of it.
Exactly. That's a really key nuance. It's not about, throwing out all the rules or abandoning every norm. It's more about discernment, knowing when to follow the established way and when it's time to forge your own path.
So being selective.
Right. It's about aligning your choices, your steps, with what truly drives you, your strengths, your passions, your sense of purpose. Even if that means stepping off the main road. It's like strategic nonconformity, maybe. You diverge where it matters most to you.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense. It's not just rebellion, it's intentional divergence. And thinking bigger picture, why does any of this matter beyond just the individual person making these choices? Does the world actually need this?
Yeah, the speech makes a strong case for that. It argues that the world desperately needs more people willing to take these less traveled paths.
Why desperately?
Because that's where the new stuff comes from. Fresh perspectives, ideas that break the mold, bold actions nobody thought possible. It's how we find new solutions, discover things we didn't even know were out there. It argues that the future is basically shaped by those who aren't afraid to, walk a different way.
So individual choices creating collective progress.
Precisely.
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive, maybe the key takeaway from the speech is that final thought. The journey itself is the reward. Something for you, the listener, to maybe consider. Look beyond the obvious routes in your own life. Listen for that, that quiet inner voice hinting at other possibilities. And maybe, just maybe, embrace the adventure of figuring out your own unique path.